Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. Sometimes when I'm reasoning about us, I know you got me, it's so effortless. Back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. No, this time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me?
Welcome, everybody, to the FPV News. It's good to be here with you to catch up on the developments in the world of FPV. How you doing, Blunty? Nice to see you.
Good. How's it going today?
Oh, it's going good. We got some good stories this week. We've got a public service announcement that almost turned into a rant about ExpressLRS. Me ranting about ExpressLRS. I usually have a real love fest for them.
Yeah, we've also got a new Walksnail release and maybe a possible rumored upcoming Walksnail release too we get to talk about.
Yeah, the famous night vision camera that we teased, that Walksnail teased, we showed it on the news, has finally come out, and we see if it lived up to expectations. And we're going to also address Madstech's claim that your O3 air unit is spying on you. And now, DJI definitely has some spying in its past, but in this case, they may not be guilty. We'll have to see. And we're gonna address probably the biggest story of the week. Mark Rober's video about drones and props.
Yeah, that probably is the biggest story of the week. Definitely the most submitted story. And don't forget, if you want to submit a news story to this show, you can go down there to the bottom and see news@fpvknowitall.com. And you can send us an email with that story. We'd love to add it to the news as long as we've never done it before.
That's true.
One thing I'll tell you, maybe we need to go back one of these days and do like a greatest hits episode or something, because a lot of people send in stuff that we've done before, but they've never seen on the show or haven't heard about. And I suspect there's a lot of viewers in that same boat.
I want to do a roundup of drones rescuing dogs with or without sausages. Just a whole episode of the news where we look at videos of. We should do that React channels are now like the hotness. I mean, they've been around forever, but we should do a React channel. And it's just all drones rescuing dogs.
Okay.
I think we would. I think a React channel would be like the point of a React channel is like people are like up and they're happy and they're and we would just be like, it would be the worst React channel ever.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm expressive enough for that.
That's why it would be good, Blunty. That's why it would be good. I like your lack of expressiveness. Whatever it is that you are. Let's get into it, though. Oh, shit. I didn't make the titles.
Oh, snap.
I didn't. Look, it's wrong already. Shoop. Intro. Well, I do have a title for public service announcements. And we do have a public service announcement about ExpressLRS. I'm going to switch over to this page. Oh, no. Hang on. I'm not allowed to be on screen if you're not. There we go. I'm going to switch over to this page, and you can tell the people about this issue while I fix the titles.
Sure.
No, I can't. I can't fix the titles because I need this screen. Hang on. Here. There we go. Okay, go ahead.
So for folks that aren't aware, there's an issue in ExpressLRS, which basically I would call an issue. It is filed as an issue, and it looks like there's going to be some resolution for it. But basically what happens is if you use the web UI, like where you go onto Wi-Fi, you connect to your receiver or transmitter on the web UI, and you go to the website. If you set any options there, including binding phrase, in those first two tabs on the web UI, those options are basically permanent unless you reset them through the web UI. There's a button there that says reset runtime options that can reset all this stuff. But otherwise, if you put a binding phrase in, it's there. And so that means if you flash a new firmware, but that firmware has a binding phrase in it, or has new whatever settings in it, some other thing that you've set in the web UI, those do not take effect and are not used. And instead what's used is what you previously put in the web UI. So if you had, like, let's say for instance you wanted to change your binding phrase or something, and you added a new binding phrase to your firmware, you flashed that. If you had previously set that binding phrase in the web UI, it's not going to take the binding phrase in the firmware. It's going to use the old binding phrase from the web UI. And the way to fix that is you can go in there and hit reset in the web UI. It'll remove those, and then it'll use what you flashed in the firmware.
This is so frustrating to me because, and I know you've had this experience, you're trying to help somebody bind their quad, and you say you got to compile the firmware, you put your binding phrase, because that's like the nuclear. You would expect that if you compile firmware, you put the binding phrase like in the firmware, and then you flash the firmware. Obviously, the binding phrase would now be whatever you flashed, but no.
Yes.
No. And I can't tell you how many times somebody has said to me, well, I flashed it, and I thought, and it's not bound, and I thought, oh, okay. And then sometimes I tell them, okay, well, maybe go to the web UI and try that. And they say, well, I flashed it, but the UID doesn't match. It didn't change. And I'm like, sure, it didn't. And it turns out they're all right. It's not a bug, though, is it? The devs don't think it's a bug. They actually think this is how it should work, and are like,
it's just kind of how
confusing, you guys?
Because, yeah, it was set up differently. So like those config options just take precedence over the other because they're stored in different places.
Yeah.
So it always looks at the web UI config first unless it's removed, unless that file's removed by clicking that reset to default button.
It's just that it's so unexpected. Like, I'm fine with, we thought it would be a good idea to be able to flash the firmware while preserving your binding phrase. That sounds like a fine idea. Why would I have to redo my binding phrase every time I update firmware? But it's unclear. It's obvious that when you compile firmware with options like in it, that then when you flash that firmware, those options should take over. And it's really not explained anywhere. Even Dominic Clifton, who's a pretty smart guy, was like, hey, this is a bug. He reported it as a bug. And they were like, no, it's not a bug. So they are going to address it, though, it sounds like. What are they going to do?
Yeah, if you scroll down, there's a post by P. Kendall going over some of the suggestions that were made by Hydra. Dominic Clifton. And it looks like they're discussing things like basically if you have a major or minor version number change, then it would update them if you flashed a new firmware no matter what. Also, you could possibly have a checkbox in the configurator. So you could say, if you want those settings to be retained, you could have that checkbox on your configurator and always keep them. And then possibly every time you flash, it would change them. It just depends on what they decide to do with. But it sounds like this will hopefully be taken care of in a couple ways. So,
yeah, for me, like, I can't think of a time when I would flash firmware and not want my binding phrase to be on the receiver. So if I receive I don't know when you would get a receiver that previously had a binding phrase assigned by WebUI, but I don't know, you've got somebody's used receiver that you borrowed from them, or you previously put a different binding phrase in there, and now I'm going to flash it with mine. I can't think of a time when I would ever want to keep that old binding phrase. Maybe if I knew it was possible, then I would think of a use case. But for me, this is like, why would you ever even do it that way? Anyway, if you're out there and you're trying to bind your ExpressLRS receiver and you've flashed and you've uploaded and it's still not binding, try going into the web UI and either manually type the binding phrase in the web UI or use that button, reset runtime options to defaults, and then reflash it and see if that fixes it.
My understanding is that file is still in there, so you don't even need to reflash. If you've already flashed that new binding phrase and it's not working, you just hit reset to defaults. It wipes all the old stuff and then uses your new stuff.
So reset to defaults doesn't really reset to defaults. It resets
the web UI to defaults.
This is confusing. This would be fine if it were clear to the user how it was intended to work. It is currently a confusing mishmash that is unintuitive, and I hope the devs will straighten it out. It's super annoying.
Yeah.
How much do they get paid for their work, by the way?
A big fat goose egg, but they do take donations to help the team get hardware to keep doing this work that they don't get paid for.
So my outrage should maybe be tempered a little bit, I guess.
A little bit. All right.
Okay. Moving on. Now I have to. I wasn't able to update the titles, so now I have to. Okay. I'm gonna keep. You go.
Okay. Well, first up, we've got Walksnail. Walksnail has released the new Avatar HD Pro kit. They've got a new night camera. We've got we got some new stuff from Walksnail, and people are excited. People are talking about Avatar V2, and they're pretty stoked. The Avatar is making some changes and upgrading some things, updating some things, so that people are still interested in the system. They're still getting that support that we were hoping for.
Yeah. The night vision, is it fair to call it a night vision camera? It's not really. It's a low light camera for sure.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. It's not as good, I think, as the little teaser they posted on Facebook. Although I don't know the sort of environmental conditions. However, it's better than any Walksnail camera and most DJI cameras. The only one it might be a match for is the Caddx Polar. Actually, I think I'm going to do a side-by-side of those. But it's a very, very usable low-light camera, if not a full night camera. So well done. And then the other camera has 4.3. It's a native 4.3 sensor. So if you like to fly in 4.3, that camera has it. I think also the low light camera it's 100 frames per second capable, and the Caddx Polar was only 60 frames per second and at higher latency. So that's another advantage.
120, right? As well, it's 120, but it's 100 in the goggles, right? Something like that.
Well, I'm not sure. That actually confused me. They said 120 in their marketing materials, but I was like, it can't be 120 because Walksnail only does 100.
Yeah, all the listings they have include 120 for whatever reason. I mean, now you can do that recording, so maybe it's the onboard recording that changes. Wait,
I'm confused, Bunty. Now you got me looking at it. It says 1080p 120. That can't be right, can it?
As far as I know, I mean, all the goggles are 100. I mean, is there possibly a 120 mode that they're adding to the VRX? I don't know. But is there even a goggle that can do that?
Well, and Walksnail can't do. Walksnail only does 1080p 60.
No, 1080p 1080p. You're right.
Yeah, it does 720p 100 and 1080p 60. But it says 1080p 120.
So you think maybe this is recording?
I don't know.
Because they added recording now, right? They had the onboard storage on the...
Yes. You think it's 1080p 120 to the VRX, the VTX?
Could be. Yeah, it could be.
These are the kind of... That. I mean, you'd think I would have figured that out when I was reviewing it.
Possibly.
Shh. Oh, I see. Thank you very much to... No, see, thank you to John Goblin for this quote from the Walksnail website. We don't do research. We just wait for you to do it while we blather. Do we support 1080p 120? Our VTX products all support 1080p 120 and can reach 1080p 120 through the firmware upgrade is around the corner. So they don't have it today. Thank God. If I'd have overlooked that in the review, it would have been...
I mean, that seems like big news too, though, if they're going to update to 1080p 120. I mean, we'll have to see how that works out, right? And then the goggles can only do 100, right? So the only thing would be the VRX, and then what goggles can do 120?
I mean, Walksnail said they're going to have some revolutionary feature in a future firmware update. I don't think that's news until they deliver it, and then we see what kind of performance it gets.
Think about like how would that be used, right? Because 120, you can't send 120 to the goggles because they're 100. Both sets of goggles are 100.
I mean,
HD zeros are 100.
Are they going to overdrive so Carl says that the display that's in the HD Zero goggles is the same as the display that's in the Walksnail Dominator. And he says that it's rated for 1080p 90. He originally didn't want to overdrive it to 100 frames per second, but decided that 720p 100 was acceptable because it was a lower bandwidth, I guess. It suggests that 1080p 100 would be significantly overdriving the display, although obviously, we don't know what Walksnail might have in their up their sleeve.
That was my understanding too, because if you look at the panel purchase, like what panels you can buy, it seems like they're only 90 panels and they're all overdriven. So I'm not sure where you could end up using 120, right? Like no goggles have 120 hertz capability. So like,
not 1080.
What's the mode doing? Your computer, I guess? I mean, it's for HDMI is the only benefit you're going to get.
I don't think that the DVR... Does the DVR record full 100 frames per second? I don't think it does.
Not sure.
I'm sure it doesn't, because when you run 720p 100, you don't get a 100 frames per second DVR, because I remember when the system first came out, I wanted to demo the 100 frames per second, and I had to buy a capture card that could capture at 100 frames per second. Because the DVR was only 60 frames per second. So then if you're running at 120, but you're only displaying at 100 and you're only recording at 60, I don't know. So this is, but here's the bottom line. Here's why I don't care. Because Cadix says we're coming out with this cool new feature that makes everybody shit their pants in excitement. And then maybe it comes next month. Maybe it comes in a year. And then when it comes, maybe it's any good, or maybe it's kind of crappy. I mean, in my opinion, Cadix has barely got 1080p 60 sort of figured out. So don't tell me you're going to do 1080p 120 and have it be worth a damn. All right.
Well, at least we're seeing some improvements from them. People are excited. New hardware.
The new VTX is good. I forgot what we were talking about. The new VTX? Solder pads, a little bit beefier. Yeah, one antenna now, right? Yeah. I did a test today to test it versus the old VTX. So that's coming soon. We're going to see if it's actually... I don't actually know the answer, if it's better or worse yet. Well, let's talk about another feature that Walksnail... We're going to be doing live titles.
Yeah, people are asking about Walksnail audience mode. We've even got somebody in the chat who just asked, Mr. Brian Lewis. And we've got a screenshot from a Walksnail video where we see an interesting piece of addition here in the bottom right.
Now, this is the firmware that Walksnail sent me. I think it's beta firmware. It's the firmware they sent me to use with the new hardware. And so, in my opinion, this is fair game, because obviously I'm going to show this stuff I'm going to show this publicly. And it looks like there's a menu option here for broadcast, which is how DJI, the O3 and the V2, the Avata at least, how they handle audience mode. The goggles rebroadcast the signal and other goggles pick it up. That seems to indicate that they are working on audience mode. Finally.
I would agree.
Flying Ryan says it's an official release as of today. Is this still in the menu? Or did they remove the menu? Did they remove this from the menu? Can anybody check and tell me?
I got asked. Did you try to turn it on?
I did.
You don't have do you have a second set? I guess you have a VRX.
I do. I actually have the Scout and the VRX. I could test it. I didn't. I scrambled to get the video done, and I haven't tested it yet. That's interesting. Maybe it works.
So in a small percent chance it's in the new firmware, that's already released to the public. Larger percent chance it's in the beta firmware only, but not in the release firmware, and we'll be getting it. You'll be getting it soon. Yeah, that's interesting to know that it's there.
Well, they've only been working on it for a year plus now.
Also true. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's not even close to done, but it just slipped in.
Yeah, somebody check it out. But it's nice. It's nice that they seem to be working on it. All right, enough about Walksnail. Let's talk about what should we talk about next?
Let's talk about the Global Qualifier. We advertised the Global Qualifier contest was happening a couple weeks in a row. We wanted to make sure people got in there and made their votes. And I'll tell you what, it does look like people got in there and make their votes. Originally, they closed it a day early. I think it was like 350 votes. And then they posted another thing that said there were over 450 votes, I think, or at least 400. So yeah, lots of people getting in there and voting. And this year's winner is AyyyKayyy. AyyyKayyy won for the third year in a row in the GQ contest. I think well deserved this year. He had some good competition. Second up was Hyper, and third was Leviathann. So shouts out to those guys and all the other people who made tracks. And it's cool to see AyyyKayyy winning again. And we've got a new GQ for everybody to fly. It's also the weekly track in Velocidrone. I think it still is, so you can get in there and compete with people on that.
Nice. Congrats to AyyyKayyy. I definitely think, I mean, in my opinion, as not really a big racer, but I definitely thought his track showed some polish and refinement and experience that it was just like, it was like a 9 out of 10. And some of the others were like, an 8.5 or an 8 out of 10. Still very, very good. Of course, I always like to say, if you want to get good at something, you got to be bad at it for a long time. So for anybody out there who wants to get into track design, keep doing it. And you can't have AyyyKayyy for what if AyyyKayyy gets hit by a bus? Then who will design the tracks? So keep at it. But it was a really good track, and he's used to everyone hating him for designing the track that broke all their quads. So he's got experience at that. So that's good.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's talk about DJI and whether your DJI O3 air unit is spying on you. And I guess what we should do first is, for those who aren't up on the controversy, I think we should start by recapping this video from MadsTech. You want to do that, Blunty?
Sure. Basically, MadsTech found, the too long didn't watch here is basically MadsTech found some logs. He went back and saw that there were logs being stored in the O3 air unit. They go back a while, and there's an index of those logs that you can see in the DJI assistant. If you try to access them, they're encrypted, so you can't get access to them, and you can't see what the contents of them are. And then so he speculated on what could be in there, but basically his takeaway and what he's put at the bottom of the video is, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but they're logging files essentially, and logging files is not okay because they don't allow you to delete them, and that's where he personally has an issue. And it's up to each person to decide if they think it's an issue or not. But yeah, basically he says, hey, there's these logs there and that sort of thing. So
and like, I understand that if you look and you see an encrypted file that's logging stuff and you can't see what it is, that's a problem. Transparency is important. Arguably, you should have the ability to opt out in a perfect world. At the same time, it is not at all unusual for devices, computers, to log technical data for troubleshooting purposes. Like many devices, if you call into tech support, they'll say, okay, can you download the logs and send them to us so we can decide what's happening? And so the contents of the logs really factor into how much of a sort of privacy violation it is. But they were encrypted, right? So no one knows what's inside them. No?
Right. Except our old friend Devil, D3VL, has shown up again. And Devil has put up a post on his blog where he's gone through and broken the encryption. So he unencrypted these logs, and he's like, let's find out what's in here before we freak out.
Oh, fucking
and
love this
his
guy.
TLDR is basically no, they're not spying on you. There's nothing bad in here. And he explains that essentially, like most hardware out there, it's logging anything that happens basically on it in local logs to find out if there are problems. So things like, did the video cut off, and when did it cut off, and how did it cut off, and what was the problem with the blocking when it did cut off, and sort of things. He says a large group of the files are actually called DSP logs, and they're basically like the status of the video. So like, what was the processor doing, latency, video data, memory utilization, etc. And they've got that basically cranked up to full. So they've got as much storage of that as they can possibly get. So they get, basically extremely concrete data about what happened to make your video bad when you tell DJI, hey, my video was really bad and there was a horrible problem with my device or whatever. They can pull your logs and they can look and see like, oh, here's exactly what happened when he said there was a problem with his video. That sort of thing.
Realistically, it's probably not going to happen that an end user will be asked to provide this information. Realistically, this is for DJI's testers. And this is the information that DJI uses to tune their technology and make it work as well as it can. But if it's just simple like baseband data, well, then why encrypt it? Why not just have it be, clear text?
Because it's just part of the IP. So essentially the idea is that like they have to encrypt it. Because it's just extra data that competitors could get, and it's their due diligence to encrypt data that an end user doesn't care about and doesn't contain specific end user data anyway. Yeah, I think that's kind of the idea. So like, hey, we could either have a bunch of exposed logs here that every competitor of ours could just go through and read off and get a bunch of information from, or we could throw some simple encryption on it, and then you have to do some work to get it out. Yeah, if you really want it. So we should also mention that if you run into anything like this in the future from DJI, and it's encrypted in the same way, Devil has included a tool on this page. You can use that tool for anybody who happens to use it. He says probably nobody will use it, but it's there, and it gives you an option to decrypt those DJI DATs. So yeah, and then
go ahead.
I was just going to say, yep. So the other thing is. People ask, why can't I delete it? A big part of that is because they literally just need that information to be there so they can prove or not prove what happened to the flight controller or to the air unit. We want to be able to know like documentation of what happened so we can credit you the money for the warranty or not credit you. And then also the other big argument is, and something MadSec mentions in his comment on the video is just that, why doesn't Walksnail do this, for instance?
Yeah, because MadSec says, oh, DJ, okay, it's just system logs, but just DJI is doing this. Yeah. And DJI is the bad guy.
Yes, and so Devil points out Walksnail does this. Basically, every company who has any kind of SoC like this will do this. It's just not in a exposed layer to the customer. And then also he points out that the FPV.WTF project, when you use that project, also has logs for the web configurator and different parts of that project as well. And they're storing very similar information. They're just storing debug information so that if they need to fix a problem you have or know what happened and debug it for other people not to have the same issue, they can see that in the logs and know what's wrong.
So I think that when first of all, the work that Ian does is invaluable. Ian has discovered a lot of significant stuff and spends a lot of time digging into the DJI systems and figuring out how they work, and is an enormous asset to the community. So when he discovered this and publicized that there's this encrypted log and we don't know what's in it and it's storing some kind of data, that's a fine decision to make. But at this point, we know what's in it, and it's not out of the ordinary, and it's not really a big deal. And, a lot of people are seeing the title of MadSec's video, which is DJI collecting your flight data? And it turns out the answer to that is no, they're not. And we know that now. And so, I don't know, maybe it would be responsible to change that title. Wouldn't presume to tell MadSec what he should and shouldn't do with his content. But if it was me, if I was a creator and I put a question like that, I mean, It's one thing if you say, is such and such the best such and such, and then in the video you tell the answer. Like that's, people accuse that of being clickbait, but like you ask the question in the title and then you put the answer in the video. But in a case like this where the question is kind of incendiary and the answer isn't in the video, but the answer is out there somewhere, and it turns out the answer is not that incendiary, I don't know. He does have a comment. He did put a comment at the top trying to sort of clarify. But I feel like, I don't know. I feel like this isn't as big a deal as it's being made out to be or implied to be. It's just my opinion. Wait, there we go. Anyway.
All right.
Thanks.
Well,
thanks
we got
all
the
for the
information
devil.
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. People know what's up, and we appreciate everybody for their work. We just want to make sure it was corrected. We everybody knows exactly what's going on with it. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Next up, we've got a video by Mark Rover that's been going around quite a bit. Obviously, it's a Mark Rover video, so 12 million people have seen this already.
Yeah.
And he goes through and talks about Zipline. Anybody who's watched this show a lot has heard us talk numerous times about Zipline, including some of their work in Rwanda, which is covered pretty heavily here, where they talk about how they've been doing deliveries of blood and different supplies to hospitals in Rwanda out of some central hubs, and basically saving a lot of lives, which is great. We've definitely documented a lot of that here, but again, it's great to see that stuff being documented so the greater public can find out that this stuff is going on and that these technologies are extremely helpful. I think one of the best applications so far that we've ever seen is Zipline doing those kind of things out in the middle of the jungle or in the middle of, where it's hard to access. You have problems with planes, things like that.
I'm trying to find, I don't want to play the video because I have a feeling Mark Rober might copy strike me. I don't know if he'll do that, but I don't want to take a chance on losing revenue. I'm trying to find a picture of this prop that everybody loves weird props. I don't know. The toroidal props were like the hotness.
Now. So basically, so the first part of the video was covering their work in Rwanda. The second part of the video, or another part of the video, was covering basically the new program that they have called the P2 Zip. And the P2 Zip is essentially a combination of a drone with new propellers. They're like Y-shaped propellers that are offset. And they're comparing these offset propellers essentially and saying that they make it quite a bit quieter of a drone.
There we go. There's an example of the prop. Can you freaking believe this thing?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I guess
insane.
balancing it is rough.
Yeah. It has to be extremely precisely balanced. That's just crazy.
So in this video, they talk about basically this drone would be a heavy lift drone that would pick up a thing called a droid, which is another little robot they show in other parts of the video. And that robot would carry your package. And then inside of that robot, it basically just drops the robot down. The robot delivers to you. And then it picks the robot back up and brings the robot back. They talk about a 10-mile range with, I believe, like 5 pounds. And that's 10 miles, it's got to be full 10 miles. So that's 5 miles in each direction. Definitely better than the last mile deliveries. But one thing I'll note here is that seems like a lot of concept talk.
Yeah,
right?
I can't help but notice this is a render. Is there any actual footage of this little dude getting, like, this looks legit. Is it? Is this? I'm not going to play the video because I don't want to like get a copy strike.
No,
but
there's nothing in the video showing an actual delivery by this new concept P2 Zip. There's a bunch of demo shots, and we can see both drones. They show the P2 Zip's drone flying without the droid on it and without a payload.
Mm-hmm.
They say it's 50 pounds. It's basically a big frame with the new propellers, and it's very quiet compared to like the DJI FPV drone, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm interested to see, like, they talk about how load isn't that important and all these kind of things, but we know load is important for thrust and propellers. Mm-hmm. So I'm very interested to see what happens when you put the droid on this thing and you have a load in it and you're trying to fly this thing at speed across town to do deliveries. I'm not sure that I buy the concept, and I feel like it's more conceptual than actual. But they talked about doing these deliveries this year, so we'll find out, I guess, how it rolls out.
It's always really suspicious to me when a creator does a big hoorah for a particular company, especially like a startup. Like, well, Zipline isn't a startup in that what they're doing in Rwanda is well established, but the drone delivery stuff is very startup and unproven. And this video is very, like, universally positive. It's just a Zipline puff piece almost. Like, was there really any criticism in it?
Maybe a little bit. I don't specifically remember any criticism. It was definitely like, hey, check out all this new cool technology. It's exciting that all this stuff is happening with drone delivery. You know, it wasn't like pros and cons list. It was like, hey, this is a cool thing that's happening. Check it out. My concern is just that it seems like a lot of concept stuff without showing anything actually happening with the new product. And if you consider how this has gone so far, you know, they continue to say, Zipline continues to say they think this will work and this will be the future. Do you think, if you want to show Zipline's video, they have one, if you click the Verge's link.
Okay. Yeah. I should say Mark Rober is very careful to say that this is not a sponsored video, and I'm sure that he's telling the truth about that, because it would be a catastrophe if he said it wasn't sponsored and turned out to be lying. Also, he strikes me as an honest person, but, you know, I don't know. That being said, there certainly can be other factors at play that cause someone to... just because it's a puff piece doesn't mean he got paid to make it a puff piece, I guess is what I'm saying. That it was not a piece of journalism about the future of drone deliveries. It was Mark Rober woke up one morning and thought Zipline was the coolest damn thing he ever saw and decided to make a video about it.
Yes.
So, you want to show that Verge piece? Let me see here, Blunty. What do we got
it's
here?
just like, if you watch that video, for anybody who's interested,
This one?
that video, is much more positive about, oh, sorry, maybe not that one.
Not this one? Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, there was another, I'm not sure where it was at, but they seem way more positive about the future of drone delivery based on this concept. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see what happens with this. We've got another story later about Wing as well, with another project for they're trying to find a way to do drone deliveries efficiently as well. Everybody seems to think that as soon as this scales, everything's going to be great and there's no problems. As soon as this scales, it's not an issue.
Well, that's like nuclear fusion, right? Just as soon as we figure out how to get net positive energy, boom, nuclear fusion is going to change everything. Yeah. Well, just as soon as I figure out how to be a billionaire, I can stop working. Just working on that one thing. You know, it's like the underpants gnomes from South Park, right? Step 3, question marks. Step 4, profit. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Anyway, the Toroidal, the propeller is pretty freaking cool. And quiet as shit.
It's neat, but like I said, it just feels very concepty right now. Like, is that actually going to work for later? Is that actually the most structurally significant
Are they not actually using it?
I mean, they're using it on a framed drone that looks like a square metal frame, and they're flying it to show that it's quiet. That's what we got to see. Okay. They claim that it's working on all these other things, but we haven't seen any of that. We don't know about any of that information. So.
Well, let's all 3D print one and then test it, and then claim based on the results of the 3D print that it doesn't work.
Oh boy.
That's what I've learned from Toroidal props. Alrighty, well, you know, good for Mark Rober. 12 million views. A puff piece about Zipline. Shouldn't pick on him. He worked with NERC. He's big on FPV. He's big on drones. He's probably just legitimately excited about this damn thing. And we're just jaded assholes who have to shit on everything.
Just telling it like it is. What we do.
No, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who's a jaded asshole and then when challenged says he's telling it like it is. I've met that guy. No, I don't want to be that guy.
Well, you can be the other guy, and I'll be the tell it like it is guy, because somebody's got to tell it like it is, and I'd rather have me than somebody.
Yeah, but like the problem. No, but the problem is that the tell it like it is guy is like, wow, your baby is really ugly. My God, that nose. Ugh. And they're like, that's pretty rude. Now mom is crying, and then he's like, hey, I'm just telling it like it is. You can't handle the truth. I don't think you're that guy.
News. This is the news, not baby review.
In today's news, your baby is ugly and stupid.
Yeah, I agree. If we were doing baby reviews, then maybe that's not the best way to go. But
all right.
I think when we're doing logic-based drone news with facts,
all right.
Well,
let's not. I think we should stipulate that you and I should not review people's babies.
100%.
Okay.
On the same page.
Let's move on. The next thing on the outline is plugs, but I feel like it's not the right time to plug.
I feel 40 minutes into the show. We gotta.
Yeah, but we just spent I think we spent 7 minutes too long talking about Mark Rober, and got a little off track, and now people are bored. And so if we then go into plugs, we may lose them.
All right. Well, we've been talking about it for longer than we.
Let's do plugs.
You tell me. Okay.
Look, I'll tell you what. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the analytics while we do the plugs, right? We're going to see. The analytics have been going up. Interesting. People like bitching about Mark Rober. Time for plugs!
First up, we've got FPVKnowItAll.com, which is JB's website, where you can check out the ultimate FPV shopping list. You can get... recommendations for anything you might want to purchase, with links to those for affiliate links to help JB out, and the other people who assist with the website. And you can get whatever recommendations you think you might want there.
Yeah, and it's Blunty. If you want to talk to Blunty on the phone, you can do that. You can do that for a low hourly cost. You could ask him about mostly drone troubleshooting is what people do, but you can talk to him about anything. He's an expert on all sorts of things and just a generally sympathetic ear to hear about all your problems. In fact, he'd love to give you personal advice about your life.
I don't know. Well, we could discuss it. We always review first before we do the call. So...
You're welcome. But in all seriousness, Blunty will get on a Zoom call with you for a reasonable hourly fee.
I'll also say probably the rate of people who actually end up getting on a call who think they need one is probably 50%, because most of the people are just solved through text and explaining the problem that they thought was going to be extremely difficult, over a few text messages, and we're good to go. So.
You're just that good. So reach out. I would also like to tell you guys about my live stream clips channel. If you don't get to watch all of every live stream, but you love the live stream content, check out Joshua Bardwell live stream clips on YouTube. Just look for JB in a cowboy hat. That's the clips channel. Come in from cutting out cows from the herd to cut out live stream clips for you. News is there, and all kinds of clips from my weekly streams. And lastly, we want to tell you about I want to tell you about SearchFPV.com. SearchFPV is a multi-store FPV search engine. If you want to find products that are in stock in your region, just pick your region. Let's do just USA, please. Thank you so much. And you just pick your product that you want to search for. Walksnail Pro. And then it'll search the stores and tell you what's there and whether it's in stock and what the price is. It's great for comparison shopping. Those are the plugs. It is working tonight, Bobby Bags.
All right. Well, next up, we've got a little update for you. WTFOS. Some people know about FPV WTF. The hacks for the DJI goggles. There's WTFOS Configurator, where you can install those plugins and packages and do all kinds of fancy stuff with the root. And 2.0 is out today. And if you go to the website, it's going to look very similar to how it used to look. But if you plug in a set of goggles, there's a whole set of the new features that are available to you.
Plug in a set of goggles, you say? Well, if only I had plugged those in 2 minutes ago, they would already be booted up and ready to go. While they're booting up, we can take a look at this. The OSD overlay tool is now right there on the main screen, where you can overlay your OSD files. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Connected. Oh, see, we're connected. And if you go to the package manager, that's not right. That's not right at all. I definitely have WTFOS on my... It's definitely there. What? That's not right. Why does it say 0 packages, Blunty?
I don't know.
Okay.
We did discuss this before the show, but we did not test it.
Why does it also not let me update or install? It can only remove. Something's up with my goggles. Have they not finished booting?
If your goggles are working correctly, if you go into the package manager and click on any of the package names, you'll get a graphic interface instead of the old methods where you had to do package configuration through the CLI. So you can easily configure your packages that you need to do.
Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's going to work now. Hey, there we go. So, like, for example,
if you click on one of those, you should be able to...
Like the MSPOSD service?
There you go.
So these options previously, you would have had to go into the CLI and you would have had to know some esoteric command to type in the CLI. But now you can simply enable this stuff here from within the configurator. And that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well...
And a whole host of other features we've got linked down in the show notes. So we've got an Imgur link to the Discord post that Junus posted with some of the other small updates and features that happened in this release. And as always, a huge thank you to Junus, who made the post and who is leading the project, and also StyleSucks, Nifa, and Ben Lumley for their work on this project, and continued work to trying to make sure you guys can do routes and use your WTFOS on your DJI goggles.
If you have a Vista generation video transmitter, Vista, Caddx Link, or the older DJI, anything except the O3 basically, and you have the V2 goggles or the V1 goggles, you absolutely have to do the research and route them. In my opinion, it's just a mandatory. I mean, like, obviously the world's not going to end. Nobody's going to die, but it gets you full Betaflight OSD and a few other features, but that's the main one. And it's just you got to have it. So there's tutorials out there. I have one. If you don't know what this is, get on it. Look. See, our plugs didn't slow us down too much, Blunty. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me...
There you go.
Oh, I see. I hadn't quite gone. Okay, so Mark Rober was a flat. But we didn't lose anything by going into plugs. We're doing okay.
Maybe from the discussion about going into plugs, lost some people.
We'll never know.
All right, next up, we've got a story about the Mars Copter, which we've largely ignored since its like 20th flight because it's so rote how easy it is to fly a helicopter on Mars. But we wanted to bring it back because we should remember that we're flying a freaking helicopter on Mars. The drone helicopter on Mars is crazy.
Yeah, I know. At 47 flights. How long has it been up there?
Yeah, I believe about 2 years, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, I've got quadcopters that didn't make it 47 flights.
100%, 100%. And yeah, so this one is a little bit special because basically they've got a video from the, video is a loose term, but they have a video from the rover of the drone,
which would be like right here.
Did that video break? Yes, I saw that video yesterday.
No, it's right here. It's right here.
There you go.
Whoa! It's a freaking helicopter flying on Mars.
I mean, that's another planet. Isn't that crazy? That's another planet.
Or maybe it's Arizona. Prove to me that's not Arizona. It's dumb. Oh shit! If I was flying that thing line of sight, it'd be over. Like the minute it started moving like that, it'd just be over. That's the last I would ever see of it. It's gone. That's amazing. How's that damn thing still running?
Yeah, man, Mars? I don't know. They're keeping it going, and they've and this has basically enabled them now to plan to put a helicopter or drone on every flight. I think we're going to see most of these missions end up with one of these, because it can just be used for, like, they originally started using it for scouting for the Rover, and found that there was a ton of extra usefulness from doing that. So especially if you can keep them this long, it's pretty exciting.
You know who else designed Mars rovers? No shit.
Mark Rover.
Mark Rover.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
Knows a thing or two. But he didn't design a helicopter, though, did he? Hey, Mark Rover. You think that, like, at the NASA Christmas party, they're like, well, I designed the Mars rover. Yeah, well, I designed a helicopter on Mars. So sit down, little boy. All right, we got another cinematic of the week.
Yeah. This one is called. It's just a large. It's a large snow feature.
Mm-hmm. Now, usually I don't show the whole cinematic, but this one's only 1 minute and 46 seconds long, and there's a money shot right at one particular point. So, but the Worth FPV only has 2.5K views, so we definitely should click over and give them. He's got 73 subscribers.
Yeah,
we gotta
subscribe.
Pump those
make that number 100. Go make that number at least 100 by the time we finish this.
I'll tell you what. I'm watching the subscriber count right now. I'm gonna play this video when I see this go across 100 subscribers. Okay? We have 568 viewers right now. We only need a few of them to go over there and bump Worth FPV. And then I'll feel okay playing this video and reacting to it. 74, it's gone down. Wait, was it 75? Was it 73?
It was 73. Yeah.
Okay, it's gone up by 1. I'm gonna keep. All right, we're gonna 77. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk about IGOW first. We're gonna come back to that. I'm gonna check the subs.
Okay. All right.
IGOW.
Okay, so next up, we want to let you know that I've heard through the grapevines from what I believe is a good source for people excited about IGOW. I just want to give them a shout out. It looks like IGOW is going to be starting on 420 this year, 42023. So look out for news on that. That's pretty exciting. IGOW is going to be, firing up pretty soon. So
420, really?
For people who don't know, IGOW is International Game of Whoop. It's the way everybody across the entire world can compete. Basically, it works similarly to a game of horse and basketball. Basically, you compete to do tricks, and then if you fail to do the trick, then you get a letter. If you get the full word whoop, you whoop out, and then you're no longer in the competition. Sometimes they'll do weeks where the lower half of the times get cut. Maybe you have to go through this crazy course they set up 5 times, and the slowest people all get cut or whatever, or get a letter, that sort of thing. So, it's a lot of fun because everybody around the world can compete.
I'm told that they're taking some steps this year to shorten the competition. In the past, they just kept going until somebody finally lost, but the pilots are so good, they kept achieving the challenges and just didn't lose. Like last year, I think it went over, was it 50 weeks?
52, something like that. It was a lot of weeks.
It's like a whole year.
Yeah.
So they've taken some steps this year to make it a little more palatable to the average person.
And they were doing like 8-hour live streams or something crazy where they were manually reviewing all the videos. It's wild.
All right. Well, we'll have more information about that when it comes out. But in the meantime, let's come back and check the subs here for Worth FPV. Okay, 119 subscribers. We're going to go ahead and play the video.
Right.
All right.
Seconds. Fortunately, no audio because it is. Yeah, it is. Okay. It's got music. It is licensed.
Okay, no music. No licensed music. Beautiful. It's so sharp. It's beautiful.
For people who are going to ask, this is done with permission from the local marshal's office. This is all planned out. There are permits gotten, all that kind of deal. So, this is totally legal.
So sharp. You guys are probably, again, if you want to see the full quality, you're going to want to go watch the original video. I am just rebroadcasting it at shitty, 4 megabits per second or something. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, and I would say there's a lot of ways you could think to film this. Like if you're think right now, where would I go? Where am I flying?
Right.
Where am I putting? And this is not what I would have done, and I think it's great. It looks great. You know, like it's just like the angles he goes at and where he flies at and stuff is not
Ooh.
necessarily.
Oh, he's chasing it. He's chasing the avalanche down the mountain. Oh, that is badass.
A great shot.
Are those houses? Is he just drop an avalanche on some houses? Is that what happened?
I don't think they're. I don't. Oh, there's like
down
there maybe a little
lodges
lodge
or something.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that was badass. This is one of those shots like the building demolition where, you know, the first time you do it, I think you kind of have no real idea of where you're going to go and what kind of shots you could get.
100%.
I have to imagine this is his first avalanche. He did a pretty good job lining that shot up. I can only imagine what would happen if he got to do it again, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mad Max wonders if this was I think this was a controlled avalanche, right? It's not just like he happened to be flying when the avalanche happened.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know how they do them exactly out there, but I assume they do them controlled so that you can not have random ones, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very cool. Alrighty. Well, it is time. We've got a couple more stories, but before we do the last few stories, we're going to read the super chats. The super chats are gone. There was at least one super chat. Give me 1 second. I'll make sure we don't overlook those.
All right.
Super chats. I'm going to just look at there's a historical super chats. Eirik Toft, thank you for a $20 super chat. Quit breaking websites. I just use the websites. Crease, thank you for a $5 super chat. That zipline prop wouldn't pinwheel when a VTOL transitions from a quad to a wing in forward flight. That prop turns into the wind and would not spin. I'm going to take your word for that, Crease. Thank you for the donation. Crease also wants to know, thank you for a $5 super chat, do the 20x20 mounting points on the Walksnail VTX have threads? I don't know, but I guess for a $5 super chat, I'll check it out. We don't usually do this kind of thing on the news. Hold on.
Gonna find out.
I mean, I'll just check.
Unprecedented.
I have one right here.
Rare news hardware check. You don't get this every day, folks.
For $5, this is what I'll do. Mine, I can tell you mine absolutely have threads. Mine 1000% have threads. I can both see the threads and I have just threaded an M2 screw into them. Now, I will say, oh, I dropped it. There are mounting points on both sides. If Nick Burns said his didn't have threads, let me just check the other side real quick. Let's see if I can do this without damaging my thing.
You need the good info. People are asking what your contraption is. This is a big testing stand, I assume.
No, 1000% there are threads on both sides. Yeah, today I was... Hang on, let me stick this back on. There are threads on both sides. What Nick Burns must have gotten one that was not machined right if he says there weren't threads. This is for testing the V1 and the V2 video transmitter.
Nice.
Yeah, that's how I do that. That I did today, and was actually editing it just before the news.
You look like the witch doctor of Walksnail.
Yeah, imagine what my neighbors thought with me riding down the street on my bike holding this thing up in the air. So yes, they are threaded. Thanks. I think that's it. All right, Super Chat's done. Let's get into It's Barely News.
It's Barely News is next up, and the first story we have is back to the drone delivery topic for a minute. Wanted to let you know that Wing is debuting a rideshare-style drone network for deliveries. Google Wing has been trying to figure out how to monetize, and in that ever-present effort to monetize, they have chosen to debut a rideshare model. So essentially, they're going to have places that they specifically set up to have a whole bunch of these drones there. And then as a business, you'll hire the drones out like you would hire out Uber cars to come and pick up your delivery and drop it off where it would go. So that way
Interesting.
you're subsidizing with everybody else. You're kind of spreading out the costs, and you're making it such that, here's what you're going to pay, and we're going to say that we're going to get enough customers to make this worthwhile. And maybe you'll have to wait a little bit extra, but we have got a bunch of drones ready, and they're always charging and all that kind of stuff.
That's very interesting. The idea that a single company like Walmart or Amazon is going to build a drone delivery network, it's a very different philosophy than we're going to build a publicly accessible drone delivery network that any business can take advantage of, presumably for a fee. That's fascinating.
You might remember Wing had a previous system. They might still be working on it, but basically the previous system was they would roll a shipping container to you, and then the shipping container would be your mobile base of operations. So you would kind of pull the rack out, and then there's a rack that launches drones out of your local location. But I believe their idea was, that infrastructure and putting that to specific businesses and taking up parking space and all these things that would happen. Instead, it's very possible they could do it spread networked and do it. Instead of a company owning all their delivery cars,
right?
You're just renting the delivery car to make the delivery, sort of thing.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. That has potential. Again, it really depends on the costs, but imagine that, on a street corner somewhere, there is a Wing hub that the drones can take packages from. And so the DoorDash driver picks up the order from the restaurant. The DoorDash driver, this would be better on foot or bike or scooter than car, but they take it down to the corner, they put it on the Wing platform, and then the drone delivers it to your house.
So there's a video here. If you pull up the video and then mute that sound, and then you hop to about, let's see here. Let me find one. Yeah, if you go to about 4 minutes in, we'll see their concept here. So basically, the person would come out from the business, and they would put it inside of this receptacle on a curbside pickup station. So you'd snap it on the curbside pickup, it would bring it up to the drone, it would drop the tether and bring it up, and then the drone could take away that curbside pickup option.
Please, I want this to be not a render so badly.
This is not a render.
Yeah. I can see that it isn't. That's pretty freaking cool.
Now, how often does it actually get the little tether in there? How long does it take? How, you know what I mean? What's the failure rate? I think those are questions we could ask. But as far as the concept, it does seem to it works in testing. So that's pretty neat. And I think we talked a lot about how do you get this to scale? That's going to be the problem, is can you get it to scale? And then when you get it to scale, do the costs make sense? And if they're ever going to make sense, I think this would be one of the ways, as you spread that cost out across everyone.
It's as much as I have some reservations about any time you replace a human with a machine, and you say, well, what's left for those humans? I think that's a question that always has to be asked. It doesn't mean that you should never replace humans with machines, but it means that if you do that, then you should think about the implications of that. It's as much as all that is true, it's really inefficient for a 2-ton vehicle to drive 10 miles so I can have a freaking hamburger. Right?
Yeah.
I think there's
that's the core concept here. That's the core idea. It's listen, we think eventually we can figure out the economics so that we don't have to bring a 2-ton vehicle to have you bring a $4 hamburger or whatever,
Yeah.
I think that's the idea. So I think if somebody's going to do it, Wing is at the top of the list of people who are going to do it properly. Amazon at the bottom of that list, but we will see how it works out, and we'll keep an eye on it.
All right. Next up, we've got an update for Uncrashed, a popular simulator. They've added macOS support, and they've added a new map with a stadium and animated monster trucks. It seems like this would be the kind of thing where we would have a video to show, but we don't.
I didn't see any official video release for this. It's possible there is one.
Is it on Steam? It's on Steam, right? But I don't know if they have a video for the new map. Nope. Just that. Okay, well, check out Uncrashed on Steam. IKEA. Always good to see IKEA in the news. What have they done now, Blunty?
Next up, IKEA has started using drones to count stock. So when the stores close, the drones fly. And they've got 16 current locations where they have 100 autonomous drones flying around and doing inventory and cataloging. And they said it actually has ended up better for them because they can put stuff sort of out of the way, higher in weird locations that might be a problem for people to inventory. But because the drones can inventory them, they can do better organization of their products.
So the drone can like fly up and inventory the stuff on the high shelves without a human have to climb a ladder or something to inventory it. Yeah, I see. It's taking pictures of the UPC codes and stuff.
I mean, as someone who has manually inventoried a bunch of things for years and years and years, anytime you can take that off a person's shoulders, to me, is great. So.
Yeah. Inventory is a pain in the ass. A giant pain in the ass. I used to work at a bike shop when I was like 17, and all the employees sat around all day and smoked weed and worked on bikes. And you can imagine... no, I don't think any... Okay, that's not true. Some people were overtly stealing. But for the most part, the shrinkage was simple incompetence. And one day, the owner of the store decided that he wanted an inventory and he wanted to know where he was at. And it was a disaster. We all had to, like, there was stuff in the store that hadn't been seen for years.
Anybody who runs a retail store location understands the importance of inventory, or should. And if you don't, you should go take inventory right now.
Yeah. That store ultimately went out of business. I didn't get my last paycheck, and I stole a bike from the store because I felt I was owed something. And
get it where you can.
Yeah. It was good times, though. Good times.
All right.
Let's see here. What's next?
Next up, we've got metal detecting drones. We've got metal detecting drones are being used to find landmines, and previously they were having some problems with metal detecting drones because they were trying to figure out how do we get these things to stay flat with the ground when the ground changes all the time in contours, and it's really important to keep the metal detector exactly lined up. And they figured out they could use these tricopter designs that have a tiltable axis. And now they can keep that metal detector lined up. So it looks like currently.
And you couldn't do it with like a wheeled or tracked vehicle because it would roll over a mine and it would blow up.
Exactly. You got it. Exactly.
This is brilliant.
It's very smart. I agree. Yeah. And there's a little video there, so you can just see it flying around. Get an idea.
Yeah.
Obviously sped up, but you can get an idea of how it goes through the space.
Holy shit. That's
smart
badass.
Thinking.
That's badass. That's badass. Yeah, don't detect mines like this. I mean, presumably they have a careful way of doing it where they don't get blown up. But I don't volunteer to go with a metal detector out into a minefield.
Yes, absolutely.
That's badass.
So hopefully there'll be a new option for people pretty soon. The next one up is, I'll say this. Normally, you see YouTube videos and stuff come up and you're like, oh, this is just trying to be scary, and we all know how this technology works, and it's not a big deal, and we all know how this stuff, sometimes you see something and you're like, oh, it's overblown, so I'm not going to learn that much from a video. I may have been naive, but this video I have learned a surprisingly large amount from, because I found out about the Argus IS, and the first link is a video on YouTube about camera technology, but the thing they talk about is Argus IS. This came out in 2014, but we're just hearing about it. I mean, it's just kind of being publicized so people know about it. So get a grasp on these numbers, okay?
Okay.
So 1.8 gigapixels is this is the resolution of the pictures it takes. Over 4 lenses, this has 368 5-megapixel sensors. So it can take one single shot of like thousands of miles and get 6-inch accuracy on those shots.
Whoa.
And so what they're doing with these is basically you set them up over an area, and based on the software that happens, because you're seeing pictures of everything at all times, you can do both forward and back historical tracking of where everything is going by like identifying, like you could circle that car, and then it'll just show you where that car's been forever and then where it's going in the future, because you have video of that entire area at this 6-inch resolution.
6-inch resolution over how, like hundreds of square miles? How big is the area?
It's hold on, 20,000. Let's see, 25 square miles.
So for a 25 square mile area, it just sees everything down to 6-inch resolution, and then with image processing, you can be like, okay, this person, where did he go?
And this was launched in 2014. So if you think about that, and these are 5 megapixel sensors. Now we have 100 megapixel sensors.
That's
it's so this thing. So one thing they talked about in the video is one of the biggest problems was moving the data. So this thing generates 21 terabytes of data a second at 15 frames a second. 21 terabytes.
How do you offload that? You don't know. You don't offload it. You don't offload it. It just stores it, and you access it remotely.
Yes,
that's my guess.
I would assume. Most
of it you don't care about. Interesting.
Yeah. So just to give some idea, if you think about how cheap you can get a 5 megapixel sensor now, you only need 368 of those to make one of these things. And now the sensors are so much better that I would guess there are stuff flying that can see down to 1 inch or less in these areas, or can see 100 square miles, or like obviously. So I just think it's interesting. We've all heard they're like, hey, a satellite can track you or drones can track you. But if you really look at what they can do here, they literally can find you on a map and then see everything you've done in an area for as long as they've flown the drone there. At such resolution, they could literally tell what you're doing with your hands and stuff.
Yeah. I remember back in, it was probably the early 2000s. This was before, 4G. It was before 3G, I think. Basically, web browsers on phone. You had your flip phone, and if you wanted to do a web browser, it was like text. It was basically before the internet, the modern mobile internet as we know it. I had a friend who refused to own a cell phone because she said that the cops would track you through your cell phone. And I was like, that's stupid. They're not doing that. And I was wrong. It turns out that they totally were doing that and are doing that.
Right.
And, I think of that. What are they doing now, Blunty? What are they doing? What's the stuff that we don't... They got a satellite that can just scan the entire continental Europe at 6-inch resolution? Is that where we're at? I don't know.
I mean, very possibly. So M. Bundy notes that atmospheric aberration is the problem. So having the drone at lower altitudes is going to be easier to see, because you don't have to worry about the atmospheric aberration.
Crazy. Gregory Hurst, I'm sorry, cops can track you through your cell phone. Sorry to break that to you. I really thought she was, she kind of was a little bit of a crazy paranoid person. She was a friend, but, some people skew that way.
Crazy clock's right twice a day normally.
She was right, though. She was totally right. What else was she right about? Maybe there really were shadow people. Anyway. We got one more.
2 more. One we got.
2 more.
We've got a drone rescue of a drone. We're going to talk about. And normally you say, hey, who cares if somebody rescued their drone? Wait, whatever. People lose drones all the time, and they get them off of buildings and all kinds of stuff. But what happens if you lose it on a mountain while you're climbing, climbing?
Well, F you, it's gone forever. You're not getting it back.
You ain't climbing that mountain. It's gone forever. That's what most people would say, is it's gone forever.
Oof,
but Still Great Productions did not. He called his friends, and they attempted to build different solutions to remove snow and get the drone out the best they could. So they actually built, if you flip to like 130.
Do we see the crash?
Oh, right. Yeah, we can see the crash there before.
This is, I presume, the flight where he crashed. Oh, yeah. Is that a failsafe, or did he try to do a little acro stuff and go down between the ridge? I think he tried to fly between the ridge and crashed.
Yeah.
Oh, buried in a foot of snow and a rescue mission begins. Oh, my goodness.
They built this little tool to try to clear snow that you can hang under a drone.
Oh, man. They really did not want to lose this drone. Oh, well, we're not going to... I don't want to steal views from people. I just want to show people cool content and let them know it's out there. This is a 6-minute long video. It's linked in the video description. Presumably they rescue the drone. I don't want to spoil the ending, but I think we can guess that they do. I'm going to save it. You want to show one more little clip of their... I'm going to guess the first attempt doesn't work. I don't know.
Yeah, they spend a while working to get it out of there, that's for sure.
Jesus. That's so beautiful. Oh, my God. All right. Check that out if you want to see all the drama. We got one more, Blunty?
Yeah, last but not least, we've got a rescue an animal. We always try to find a rescue an animal story for a drone if we can. And one we got here is a drone pilot noticed a sea turtle. And he thought, man, that sea turtle looks messed up. I don't think that sea turtle is doing okay. It doesn't look great. And he took a video of it. And he called a local the Fish and Game or Wildlife, Florida Wildlife Control. And they weren't sure if he knew what he was talking about. So he got on the phone with another lady, their biologist, who was trying to figure out, was it legit or not? And he sent him the video, and they were able to find the video very quickly, know that there was an issue with the turtle.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't look like a well turtle.
And then the biologist came out within the hour, was able to get the turtle back in and save it and help out the turtle.
Turtles saved by drone. That's a first for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that is going to bring us to the end of the news. We've had no more super chats, so there's nothing stopping us from signing off.
Yeah, just a reminder, everybody, go to news@fpvknowitall.com. Email that to give us your news if you thought we missed anything or you want to let us know about something cool that's happening.
Especially rescued animals.
Yes.
Well, that's going to do it. We will see you next week. Same time, same channel. And thanks, Blunty. Good as always.
Yep. See you guys.